Thank you, Ada. Super excited to welcome our next speaker, Josh Bersin. Josh Bersin does not need any introduction. Every time somebody actually says that, then they go ahead and introduce them. But Ada has done the work. So welcome, Josh. How's it going?
Great, Vivek. Thank you for inviting me to participate and talk about all this wonderful AI stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever imagine like a year ago that we would have Ada, the first developer, recreate, and she would actually be introducing you in an AI day and you'd be participating in HackRank AI Day?
Right before this call, I was on the phone with somebody. We have this big, professional development academy for HR, and there's like 25,000 comments in there. And 3 years ago, I tried to hire an AI person to figure out what was in there. And they ran all this code and they said, I'll tell you, here's the answer. People are talking about business. And I was like, what? That's all you could figure out?
Yeah, yeah,
So things have come a long way.
of course, yeah. Today's AI systems can do so much more. I'm actually curious before we dive into how AI is going to change the future of world and work and stuff. How has AI changed your life? What AI tools do you use? What has worked and what is actually not
Oh,
working?
sure. Well, I have this very interesting career where I spend a lot of time on the phone and I read a lot and I talk to people. I have a lot of video meetings and conference calls and stuff. And I have to sort of take notes. I have I write stuff down
Mhm.
and then I try to go back and remember what everybody talked about. All of a sudden I don't have to do that anymore. I can record things. I have summaries. I can go back and listen to replays. I can load stuff. We have a platform called Galileo, which is basically LLM. I can load stuff in there. I can summarize it. Somebody says, if I decide I want to write a chart on a presentation on, like just the other day, I was trying to study revenue per employee for the top 25 companies in every industry.
Mhm.
Normally that would take me a weekend. So I go to Bard or Gemini and I say, please, analyze the last years revenue based divided by employee for the following 10 companies. Boop, I get the answer. I'm just finding more and more and more ways to use this in my personal job every single minute. And I'm barely scratching the surface of the potential of how to use prompting better. Um, I was just on the phone with one of our analysts before, and we were taking all of the comments. We have 11,000 comments from our diversity and inclusion course online, which we have not been able to analyze. We just stuck it into the LLM, asked it a few questions, and we figured out what everybody was talking about in 2 minutes. So there's just boundless opportunities here for us. And then, of course, all of the text messages and things I get on the phone. I'm talking to Siri all the time. I do podcasts while I'm going for a walk, and then I come home and I take the file and I load it and then I analyze it and I improve it. I mean, there's just no end to this,
Yeah.
and I'm sure for a software engineer, it's similarly as fascinating. So I just think it's spectacular and it's exceeding my expectations every minute. Not every product, but most of them.
When was the last time you felt this way about a technology?
I don't think I've ever been this excited. I'll tell you that the last time I was this excited, I was in my 30s and I was at IBM working on mainframes and somebody brought a PC into the office and we started playing with it and we all huddled around it to try
Yeah.
to see what it was. And then I ended up taking one of the PCs home and used Multiplan, which was, the predecessor to Excel. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to spend the rest of my weekend working on this. I don't think I've been that excited since then, to be honest.
That's wow. That's been a long time. That means that AI has certainly has a high bar. I thought you would say something like iPhone or the moment.
Well, the
Yeah.
iPhone's cool, but those were sort of evolutionary. You could sort of feel them coming over time. This thing just jumped out of nowhere and
Yeah.
suddenly started working very, very well.
I don't know if you can exactly remember the moment, but we'll try our best. So let's say 30 years ago, you were at IBM, you saw the PC, you had Excel, and this was like, wow, this is so cool. Did you feel that this was going to take away accountants' jobs or it's going to have a big impact on the market at that point in time?
No, I've never felt that about any of these technology trends. And every time there's a technology, somebody writes 100 articles on how it's going to eliminate everybody's job. I mean, because I'm an engineer and I like to play with things, and
Mhm.
everything is a tool. So, if you think of all of these things as a tool and you're willing to learn, you got to learn how to use them, right? I mean, it doesn't work overnight. And if you're not willing to invest in learning how to use it, then it does tend to intimidate you. So I've never had that concern at all. And literally I started working before voicemail, before PCs. We were literally using typewriters when I got out of college, and slide rules. For my second year in college was the first HP calculator. So we had slide rules my first year in college. So, you know, I've seen a lot of this.
And you know how these articles they title, not only do they say that it's going to take away all the jobs, they also add the addendum. This time it's different. For
Well,
sure.
but the thing that I think you have to remember is every new technology creates all sorts of jobs in how to use it, how to improve it, how to integrate it, how to teach people how to use it. I mean, there's going to be thousands and hundreds of thousands of jobs created to train AI, to audit AI, to improve it, to tune it. So if you're a software engineer, yeah, maybe it writes code better, but that just means there's other things you can work on to make the system better. So I don't expect. I mean, anybody who works in a call center and answers stupid questions on how to reset your password, yeah, those jobs aren't going to be here any longer. But those people will be able to do other things.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's always going to be some level of job displacement, but you're right. Like it's also going to create new jobs. It's also, and who knows what those new jobs are going to look like? Who knows if prompt engineers are going to be the new type of engineers that's going to come up in the future. Maybe if you were to just think about the HR tech landscape in general, who do you think is like super well positioned in this space to take advantage of this whole generative AI technology? And who do you think is also threatened, like both
Well, I
sides of?
think I think the companies that are threatened are the Workday, Oracle, SAP, HRMS, ERP companies, because the ERP companies are, and this includes everybody, ADP, payroll companies. I mean, these are gigantically complicated transaction systems with workflows and analytics tools. AI threatens all of that because you can build workflows in AI, you can do analytics in AI, you can learn and create models in AI that you can't create in those transactional systems. So the companies that are thriving are the ones that have built AI first platforms for sourcing, for talent intelligence, content development and learning, knowledge management, expert chatbots like ours. Those are really going to have big markets. They're going to sit on top of this old infrastructure, and they're going to eat into the old infrastructure year by year. And then the incumbent vendors are going to have to decide: do they buy one of these systems? Do they rebuild a whole AI layer on top? I think the behavior of some of the HRMS sort of vendors has been, let's create a little generative AI tool on top. That's going to be a commodity. I think they're going to have to really seriously look at their underlying architectures and decide, how can we rethink this problem around massive amounts of data and training and models. And they're working on it. But every time there's one of these massive platform shifts, I mean, that was Workday's. The reason Workday exists and they've done so well is they figured out the cloud before everybody else, many
Mhm.
years before everybody else. And SAP took them a long time to figure it out. I think the same kind of evolution will happen here.
Yeah, it is an interesting conundrum if you were to think about it. Like AI certainly benefits a lot from data sets, and all these incumbent companies have lots and lots of data because they're essentially a system of
They don't
record.
really have that much data. So here's a very big misconception. Workday has a tiny fraction of the data of Eightfold.
Mhm.
Workday only has data on Workday employees using Workday software who have volunteered to share their data with Workday, which is
Yeah,
about half their customers. Eightfold and other tools like Eightfold have 2 billion profiles that they're running models on. So
yeah,
there's no way the Workday AI will ever be as intelligent or insightful as the AI from, a big data set like LinkedIn or Eightfold. Now, Workday knows this, and so they're trying to figure out what kind of an architecture can they build that could leverage the external data versus the data they have. So, and that doesn't mean Workday can't use AI a lot. Workday can use AI to, I mean, kind of prevent you from clicking through 100 screens to find what you need to find and so forth. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things they can do, but there's a lot of things they can't do too because they have a different kind of a system. So I don't think it's, I mean, you guys know more about software than I do, but I don't think this is going to be a business of taking an incumbent ERP and throwing all sorts of data in it and turning on AI.
Yeah.
They weren't designed for that.
It sounds super easy in theory, but essentially you need to like you mentioned, you needed to re-architect fundamentally to be an AI first company because every interaction that you think about in an AI first world, it's going to be very different. I mean, even if you were to think about just like sourcing, right? Like the way that a recruiter and a hiring manager converse in a day to day job, it's not through job descriptions or through Boolean search or through even like filters, but that's the user interface that people have actually been given. And I think if you were to like construct an AI first recruiting or sourcing tool, the way that you would interact with the tool is going to be like natural language, like help me find people with A, B, and C, and it'll return
Well,
something.
one of the vendors, for example, that's very interesting on this area, that's very ahead of the curve, is this company called Seekout. I don't know if you guys have talked to
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Really
Very cool.
smart guys. So not only do they have the large data set and the models from that data set to figure out people's skills and so forth, but now they have a generative AI on top of it, so you can talk to it and you don't have to fill out a bunch of buttons
Yeah,
to come up with the right model that you're trying to figure out. You can literally say to it, I'm looking for software engineers that have skills in this technology that are located in these countries, in these cities. And then it'll come back to you and say, okay, I've found X number of them. What else would you like to know? And it'll give you questions that it suggests you answers, you ask. So, I mean, it's going to be, I mean, it's not going to be able to do testing like you guys do and, all that, but, it's way, way different
yeah.
than, traditional systems.
And what is your take on the fact that, right now data is, I know it's like a little bit of a cliche, data is the new oil, and everybody is now protective of the data. Like recently, Reddit announced that they have signed a $60 million a year deal with one of the large providers to scrape data. I mean, they wouldn't have never even forecasted this like 2, 3 years ago.
Who would have guessed that Reddit data is that valuable?
Exactly. Well, it is valuable, Josh.
People in there, I mean, I've been in Reddit. There's people talking about how to hack Microsoft Windows and stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of subreddits. I'll send you a few subreddits that are actually people, and it's not like a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But if you were to like think about like data, sort of whatever is the new oil, and you heard the Reddit deal, and a lot of the companies that were even talking about Seekout, Eightfold, and things in those lines, they do rely a lot on public data information from other companies. And now that all these companies are starting to realize, wow, this is going to be super, super valuable, do you think this will lead to kind of a less open internet, for lack of a
Well,
better?
I have two comments. One is I don't know if open data is as valuable as people think it is. If I
Mhm.
don't know where it came from, do I really want it giving me an authoritative answer? I'll tell you, the companies we talk to say no. The reason we built Galileo is it's a walled garden. It only has our content in it. We're only putting in content that we know where it came from. And we either developed it ourselves or we have a trusted source with a relationship with that source.
Yeah.
So I don't, I'm sure there's a lot of great stuff in Reddit and I'm sure there's great stuff in Pinterest and there's great, I mean, but I don't know how to monetize that in a trusted source. It may be fine for people who are just browsing around looking for things, but um, I just don't know how useful that will be. And you've probably seen these stories about the drift that takes place when more and more junky content gets in. So I don't think that's. I think the business model of a content company like us is the
Mhm.
credibility and the validity of the content, not the volume of it. The second issue, though, is that I think we're going to go through an economic change where the people with the content are going to realize that they don't want to give it away. They don't want OpenAI crawling it. I mean,
Yeah.
they've learned that lesson from Google. So, legal databases, people that are experts on topics, like the Harvard Business Review, the New York. This is why the New York Times is suing OpenAI. They're beginning to realize that all the money they spent doing the research, writing the whatever they did, they don't want to give it away the way they used to. So I think there'll be, corpuses of very, very highly trusted content that'll be worth a lot of money out there, and then there'll be stuff that you're going to have to figure out yourself, how good it is. And my hope is that the first category really takes off and has a flourishing, business model. Because I think in the early days of the internet with Google, everybody was so happy to be listed by Google, they didn't care. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh my God, somebody found me on Google. That's great.
Their sites to be listed by Google. Like
So
they
I
want
think
to.
we're past that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's your take on data providers, like all these data providers that source data? Do you think they'll get more valuable or less valuable because all these companies
Well, the
are building?
problem there's a lot of them. I'm amazed how many there are. In HR, there's probably 20 companies that sell
Yeah,
data that used by recruiters and sourcing and people like that. I think each one of them have to really learn what is their differentiation. Like one of the ones I talked to yesterday or a couple of days ago has something like 150 countries and almost 30 to 40 sources of data in each country, which is a lot of
yeah,
data to manage. And he said, for example, we know more about oncology jobs, oncology skills, oncology technology, oncology, where the oncology research is being done than anybody else. And so they're selling that data to the pharma industry. I think the average LinkedIn or somebody has none of that. So I think the data providers, because now that we have a tool like AI to use the data, have the opportunity to go deeper and deeper and more specialized. And that's great. Then they have a business model licensing their data to the people that are going to need it, and they don't have to try to do everything. And the AI will, prevent them from having to build, enormous amounts of technology just to get people to use it. One of the problems data providers have always had is I got all this data, but I don't have enough engineers to build a good interface on top of it, so nobody can really figure out how to use it. And
yeah,
that actually is not a simple problem to solve, and AI really helps with that.
yeah, yeah. Agree, agree. Maybe just um, taking on a slightly different tangent on this. You've written a lot about learning, upskilling platforms. I think one of my favorite articles, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, it's also inspired us to launch this product today called Skillup, is this notion of capability academy. I think you come up with a taxonomy of job, family, role, capabilities, and skills, and capability academy is important. Would you rewrite that post in any way with the AI revolution? I believe you wrote that like a year or 18 months ago.
We use Galileo to rewrite a lot of stuff. Galileo is writing better articles than I do
Right, yeah. So what do you
because
think
it
Galileo?
sees everything because it writes about everything at the same time. I think that idea was a good idea, and it still is. The idea of the Capability Academy, but by the way, other companies have now taken that idea and really used it.
Uh-huh.
The idea was training is not a bunch of courses, it's not a bunch of tests, it's not a bunch of curriculum. It's a bunch of other things too. It's experts, it's discussions, it's third party speakers, it's developmental assignments, it's projects. If you're a corporate training function, it's different if you're a university course because then you're just trying to get somebody in and out. But you want to build deep capabilities, not just technical skills. Technical skills are a prerequisite to capabilities. The way we frame it for people is technical skills are used in business capabilities. I was talking to Coca-Cola yesterday or the day before. So Coca-Cola is a very sophisticated company. They don't want to have 100,000 skills. They have worked in their team to come up with 4 capability academies and 100 critical capabilities for Coca-Cola. And everybody in Coca-Cola gets, assigned, or because of their role, a certain number of capabilities are expected to develop. And then they go to one of these 4 capability academies to build those things. And that includes business people talking about the domain, examples, discussions of things that have broken or not worked, advancing the state of art. Like if you're a design firm or you're a software firm, I don't want to just learn about software. I want to talk about what didn't work and what could we be doing better and what are other companies doing. So that's what a capability academy is. It's a collection of people, and I consider it a place, not a thing. It's a place you go to learn that has a lot of things in it. And it's not that different from a leadership academy, which a lot of companies have had for a long time, a sales academy, which a lot of companies do have and some don't, but a customer service academy, a safety academy. And I, when I first sort of came up with the name, it was, I had actually visited Capital One where they had built this data science. I don't think they called it academy. I forget what they called it. Data science college, I think.
Mhm.
And I actually physically went there and I met a whole bunch of people and they said, well, we got third party speakers coming in and we do develop. They told me all the things we're doing. I'm thinking, wow, how come everybody isn't thinking about it this way? And that's the concept. And I think it's not easy to do. It's not like you're going to have 100 capability academies, but every company has certain capabilities that are absolutely critical to their success. And they're probably developing these capabilities anyway, but just more informally.
Yeah.
So, and I think AI is going to make it easier. I'll give you an example of how it's going to make it easier. So, there's a I won't mention the name of the company. There's a very large, very old defense contractor in the UK we're working with, and
Hmm.
they build submarines and nuclear submarines, and they missiles and aircraft and jet engines and all this stuff. And there's engineers that have been there for decades that are deeply expert in every model of every one of the domain things they've built. And new engineers come in out of college, very smart, highly trained master's degrees, and they can't. It takes them at least a year or 2 years to learn what's going on. And they have wikis and they have videos and they have all this stuff sitting around. Well, they're now experimenting with AI and they're loading a whole bunch of this content into different domain specific AI platforms. And they're going to experiment building capability academies with AI as the core source of content with humans too. And I think it's going to completely change the way they train people because right now, if you don't want to work there 40 years, it takes you a long time to catch up with all the stuff they've done all this time. And I think most companies have exactly that problem in many domains of their particular business.
Yeah. No, completely makes sense. And if a company as large as Coca-Cola can standardize on just 100 capabilities, then a lot of the other companies would probably need even fewer capabilities, I would presume,
It
and have
takes, but it takes leadership and focus to do that.
yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a maybe quick and dirty, where somebody says, well, I'm just going to buy this skills tool from some vendor and we're going to just turn it on and then everybody will get smarter. And that's not necessarily going to get you as far as you think.
Yeah. And do you think in this sort of AI is changing super rapidly? You're probably seeing it every day. There's some kind of a breakthrough by some company, whether it's Google or OpenAI or others. And so the way that you're going to accomplish these tasks is going to continuously evolve and change because AI is suddenly going to get more capable and smart over time. And do you think capability is like a good anchor to hold on to in this ever changing world because the capabilities will have a longer shelf life, but the way that you do these is going to change quite rapidly. Is that a framing to think about this?
AI, you're talking about in general?
Yeah, AI is going to change the skills, like how you do
Yeah,
this,
I
but
think,
it will have a longer
well,
shelf life. Is that a fair framing to think about?
I don't know. I'm in my late 60s, and I don't think the number of skills or the rate of change of skills is. I mean, there were a lot of things to learn when I got out of college
Uh-huh.
that are now obsolete. But I think if you want to work if you're a business person and you're working in any industry that's changing relatively quickly, which is most of them, not all of them, you're going to be faced with new technologies, new platforms, new IT stuff, new business models. I mean, every year. And so if you don't have a capability, if you don't have an academy or a capability academy oriented approach in the company and in your own career, you're going to be left behind in certain areas. And you
Yeah.
have to be intellectually curious. I think as an individual, the people that I find the most successful, and I think what makes me successful, to some degree, is I'm just curious about a lot of stuff. And I don't mind reading about it or watching a YouTube or asking somebody a question. Um, and that is really, maybe the best skill of all is enough self confidence or at least enough inquiry that when somebody says a word you don't understand, you either look it up or you ask them, hey, by the way, what is that? Which is an embarrassing question, but it's okay. People don't mind.
Yeah, yeah. I think Jeff Immelt, the GE CEO, said somebody asked him, "What's the one thing you would have changed? You'd like to do different in your CEO career?" He said, "I wish I don't know a lot more than I did." So just being like curious to try and understand. We're towards the end of the show, Josh. I know like you're super busy. So first off, really appreciate you taking time. Finally, I just want to play this little game. So this is how the game goes. I'm going to give you a persona and I would like you to predict what will this role look like in 5 years, 10 and
Okay.
15 years is now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the personas and then you can talk about this. Recruiter.
I think a recruiter will be a talent scout or a talent advisor to a hiring manager, not a on the phone sourcer and interviewing person anymore. I think a lot of that stuff they won't have to do.
Got it. A recruiting coordinator.
I think recruiting coordinators are going to become either data analysts or recruiters. I don't think there will be that much coordination to do anymore, and I'm not sure recruiting coordinators, excuse me, to me are probably going to go the way of a lot of the executive assistants or typists or people that just did routine work before we had automation.
L&D managers.
L&D managers are going to become technology strategists, performance consultants, media strategists, behavioral scientists. Managing the day-to-day operations of L&D still has to happen, but a lot of the mundane L&D tasks of building content and testing content and all that is going to be much more automated.
A hiring manager in the view of an interview or a hiring process. How would the role change?
Well, I think that job is never going to go away. I think I mean I hate the word hiring manager because basically everybody's a
Yeah,
manager's a hiring
yeah,
manager. I
yeah.
mean, what a manager's job is to figure out the right composition of his or her team and the right processes and culture and behaviors that allow that team to flourish and grow and perform. And sometimes that's a hiring problem. And I don't think you can get away from hiring if you're a manager. And if you don't like hiring, you're not going to like being a manager.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A developer. Lots of
I think
technology.
that listen, I'm sorry, I studied mechanical engineering. I didn't study computer science. I think developers are going to be doing exciting things forever. I mean, computers, yeah, I know Elon Musk says computers are going to run the world, but we're not. They're always going to need engineers to program them, develop, whatever the word develop means and the way code is developed in the future is still going to be a huge issue. The architecture, the layers, how to integrate the old stuff with the new stuff, what's going to be the best user experience. I mean, this is never going to go away. How to manage data, these new data technologies. There's just all sorts of exciting things for developers to work on.
Got it. Finally, CEO.
Well, I mean, a CEO is essentially an ill-defined job by nature. It's somebody who um, knows or figures out what the top level strategy and operational and you know long-term financial success requires in an organization of some size with some mission and some market. I think CEOs have to be savvy and interested in technology. They cannot ignore it. They can't assume that the CIO or somebody else knows everything. They can't be intimidated by it. And I think good CEOs are very respectful and curious about technology, but a lot of their work is not technology, at least unless you're a tech CEO. It's people, it's strategy, it's competition, it's markets, it's global cultures, it's other things. And I think it will always be a fascinatingly difficult job. very challenging job, as you know, Vivek. I know, and one that will change. I mean, the model CEOs that were great CEOs when I was a young person are not the same models today, and there will be constant evolution in what it takes to be a great CEO. But it's always going to be an aspirational job for many, many people.
Got it. Thank you for telling all my employees that my job is really hard. That's very
I
good.
don't think most people know how hard your job is, Vivek. That's the problem. It's easy to complain.
This clip is absolutely going to go viral within HackerRank. Josh, thank you so much. I know you're super busy, like I mentioned. Really, really appreciate you taking time, and I'm sure like customers, developers, everybody really enjoyed it. Thank you, and I'm going to send you a AI T-shirt that is designed with all AI tools and
Great.
has Ada posting it. Thank
Can't wait
you.
to
Back to you, Ada.